podcast from CBS Sports.
High drive, center field, hit the wall, grand slam. This is magnificent.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
Happy Memorial Day, everybody, and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today. Frank Stanfield joined by Scott White here to recap another great weekend of baseball. We'll fire up the Dropometer. We've got some waiver wire ads to talk about and get you ready for Week 10 in Fantasy Baseball. But first, what's up, Scott? How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. Doing just fine.
That is a welcome sight. Great to hear. Because I don't know who I pissed off, Scott, but the sports gods, they're mad at me. I did something wrong because between the Knicks and the Yankees, I had an awful weekend. It was, oh my gosh. Oh man, Yankees swept by the Tigers. Credit to the Tigers. I mean, we'll talk about some of their pitchers here early on. And then, of course, your hometown Atlanta Hawks, man, they're really sticking it to my Knicks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wish I could celebrate that, but I haven't been paying attention, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, go Hawks.
It's a rough scene. It is a rough.
There are times in my life when I made an earnest effort to be a Hawks fan. But I'd be lying if I said that time is right now.
It's a good time. It's a good time.
Maybe I'll jump on the bandwagon if they get to the finals or something. But
you might as well. I mean, they got a lot of young, up-and-coming talent, but no one wants to hear about basketball. Let's jump right into some standouts from the weekend.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, Sky, where would you like to start?
I would like to start with Zach Wheeler, who has been wheeling and dealing. And 14 strikeouts in his start over the weekend. It was his third straight start with double-digit strikeouts. And like, we've never seen this from Zach Wheeler before. He's 31 years old. And remember, our take on him coming into this season is, well, look, he's finally become reliable. A little boring, but, he's safe. And now he's striking out 11 batters per 9 innings. His K per 9 is higher than Trevor Rogers at this point, as good as a start as Rogers got off to. I mean, it's genuinely elite. And, even before this stretch of double-digit strikeout efforts for Wheeler, his swinging strike rate was way up. He's the guy, you look at the swinging strike rate over the years, but pretty bland, pretty vanilla. Wasn't getting it done by missing bats, was really getting it done more by weak contact. So where did this come from for Zach Wheeler? Well, in his own words, he's learned to pitch to his strengths. And what that seems to mean is more first pitch strikes. First of all, getting ahead in the count. His first pitch strike rate is 65.6% this year compared to 58.3% last year. That's a pretty big difference. Now, he has been closer to 65 in the past, but still getting more first pitch strikes and really reconfiguring his arsenal so that the swing and miss pitch are being used more. Basically, he's faded the sinker in favor of more four-seamers, which in his case is a good swing and miss pitch, and more sliders, which is his best swing and miss pitch. And I don't know, he's saying everything is shaped like it's supposed to. So I think he feels better about how the pitches are, the kind of path they're taking to the plate, in addition to the choices he's making, in addition to throwing strikes. I just think he's found another gear here that nobody saw coming. And I think it's time we treat him like a true ace.
Yeah, it's been an awesome season thus far for Zach Wheeler. And we did one of the podcasts we did preseason was who have you wound up with most at each position? And Zach Wheeler was actually the starting pitcher. I wound up with a lot of shares just because he was boring for the reasons you mentioned. Seemed like he was reliable, pitches deep into games consistently. And I was not expecting anything close to this that we've gotten from Zach Wheeler thus far. He is the SP4 in points leagues. He's SP9 in Roto.
It's a pleasant surprise. Yeah. I'm not ready to move him inside my top 12, but I think he's right there with Lance Lynn. Maybe I'd put him even ahead of Lance Lynn.
Yeah, I
Because
think
he's kind of doing what we hoped Lynn would do, right?
Yeah, I made that swap already last week. I moved Wheeler
Yeah.
ahead of Lynn, so I have him at SP 15, just behind names like Flaherty and Buehler and Kershaw. So I don't know if we can do that yet, but a couple more outings like this, and I think we can start to see Zach Wheeler climb up a little bit higher. So he's been great, throwing his slider a little bit more this year, 25% of the time. That's a career high for him, and has a really good whiff rate on that slider as well. So shout out to Zach Wheeler. He's been great. I'm going to cheat a little bit here, Scott. I'm going to give two standouts from the weekend because I do think that they might be the most exciting players that are available on waiver wires right now, one hitter and one pitcher. And we'll start with Tyler O'Neill, who has 7 hits in 4 games, including 3 home runs since returning from the IL. He's now up to 11 home runs and 4 steals on the season. The good news is he is crushing the baseball this season. Like, he's always hit the ball extremely hard, but even more so now than ever before. His expected WOBA on contact this year, so basically it just measures your quality of contact, 98th percentile. His barrel rate and expected slugging percentage are both the best in baseball. That's Tyler O'Neill. So the downside to him is that he has a 2% walk rate and a 34% strikeout rate. So I'm not sure how long he can maintain this type of production, Scott, but he's 58% rostered. He's got 7 games this upcoming week, including facing 2 lefties. Is Tyler O'Neill a must-add in all formats the way that he's playing?
No, I wouldn't say must-add in all formats. I would hesitate to add him in a points league, as bad as that plate discipline is. And even though the expected stats line up with his... Well, I mean, his expected stats are even better than the actual stats. His expected batting average 300, expected slug 682. His actual batting average and slug are good, but not that good. But you mentioned how high he ranks in barrel rate. And his barrel rate coming into Sunday's game was 22.7%. Like, half of that barrel rate would be considered good. So it just seems too good to be true, like barreling up the ball that consistently. I think that's like the embodiment of a hot streak. And I don't think he can sustain this. And with the plate discipline that bad, I don't know how he looks coming out the other side. I'm open to the idea that he's breaking out, but I need to see more evidence.
Fair enough. Yeah, Tyler O'Neill. So he should be added in all 5 outfielder leagues. You're all right with that?
Yeah, all 5 outfielder leagues, and category league, even a 3 outfielder category league. I'd prioritize him probably more than I am in a points league. But as somebody who had to add an outfielder in a couple of 3 outfielder points leagues this weekend, obviously 3 outfielder leagues, you're talking the shallower end of the spectrum. But I was looking at like Tommy Pham over Tyler O'Neill, who's rostered in 9%, 67% of leagues versus O'Neill's 58%. So similarly available. I want to say there was even other outfielders I was looking at over O'Neill in those points leagues. But O'Neill was on the radar, but he was further down for me in a points league.
Fair enough. Yeah, Tyler O'Neill, he's mashing, but the plate discipline is really, really tough to swallow in a points league. How about Tarek Skubal, who up against my Yankees, 6 shutout on Sunday with 3 hits, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, including 15 swinging strikes on 95 pitches. And he basically went back to his changeup that he was throwing last year. He ditched the splitter as of May 14th on. In 4 starts since then, he has a 3.27 ERA. He's 30% rostered. So Tyler O'Neill was not a must-add. Scott, how about Tarek Skubal? Is he a must-add?
Well, he's closer. Obviously it depends on how much pitching you need, but I feel better. I feel more confident in the direction Tarek Skubal's heading. That changeup, I liked Skubal as a breakout coming into the year, in part because he developed this new changeup with driveline baseball. It's kind of a split change, whatever. It seemed like it seemed like a sensible move. But if you go back and look at last year when he began throwing his changeup more late in the season, he was getting a lot more whiffs. It was not looking like a completely ineffective pitch for him. And now he's getting those whiffs on the slider too. Like he's gone from being mostly just the fastball last year to it looks like 3 legit pitches now, with the fastball still being the best. But nonetheless, on Sunday, Skubal, his swinging strike, he got 3 on the slider, he got 4 on the change out of 15 total whiffs on the day. So like they were all contributing to that total. And his previous 2 starts, both just 5 innings, but he had 9 strikeouts in each. So, there's a 3-start stretch where Skubal has looked like a really effective pitcher, if only in short starts there. Seeing him go 6 innings in this one obviously makes me feel even better about picking him up. And I think there's a good chance he keeps it going.
Which Detroit Tigers starting pitcher, Scott, do you like most that might be available? Casey Mize, 71% rostered. Spencer Turnbull, 63% rostered. Obviously, Skubal available in many more leagues. He's only 30% rostered on CBS. How would you rank those 3 Tigers starting pitchers?
Yeah, and I think Skubal definitely has to be at the top of that list. Definitely, okay. Even though he's the least rostered. Yeah, I mean, obviously Turnbull's roster rate jumped up a lot this week because he was in line for 2 starts, 2 very favorable matchups, and he pretty much came through. I actually like what Turnbull did on Sunday. No, it wasn't Sunday. Obviously, it was Saturday, right? Saturday when Turnbull started, he got 13 whiffs in 5 2/3 innings. So that's 3 out of his past 4 starts where Turnbull's had double-digit whiffs, and that's not something we've seen a lot from him in the past. So I'm not saying if you picked up Turnbull for the 2-start week, you have to dump him now. There may still be something there, but I would rather have Skubal. And, I'd probably still have Turnbull outside of my top 75 starting pitchers.
All righty. Skubal ahead of all the other Tigers starting pitchers. Lots to be excited about right now with Tarik Skubal. Lots to be excited about with who? The Mountain. Alek Manoah. We spoke about him a ton on Friday. I just like calling him the Mountain. So any excuse that I get to say that, I'm going to go for it. I wanted to know how much he went for in your Fab League, Scott, if you have that readily available. In my 15-team Roto Leagues on Sunday, he went for $318 out of a $1,000 budget in my 15-team 5x5 main event league over at the NFBC. I actually had the backup bid at $289, but I'm already under $500 in that league, so I couldn't be as aggressive as I wanted to. And then he went for $223 in my TGFBI, which is also a 15-team Roto League.
Yeah, I think he was like 282 and 284 in TGFBI and the main event league that I share a team in. So yeah, over 208. And that's about what we were saying, right? 25-30% of the budget. It always feels like more when it's out of 1,000 as opposed to out of 100.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but it does.
I think on Friday we said that we'd be willing to go as high as 35%. And technically, if we did that, we would have won him in all leagues where he was available. But
yeah,
we just
spent too much money already.
Yeah,
that was the problem.
Before we get to some news and notes, just want to remind everyone that you could follow Fantasy Baseball Today and FBT and 5 on Spotify, not just an app for music, of course, has all of your favorite podcasts from CBS Sports. I've been using it more recently. When I listen to podcasts, you can listen at virtually any speed that you can imagine. I'm a big 1.5x speed guy, kind of guy myself. And again, just make sure to listen and follow this podcast on Spotify. Thanks as always. Some news and notes from the weekend. Just an awful story coming out of Atlanta this weekend as Marcell Ozuna was arrested on charges of aggravated assault by strangulation, a felony that carries a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 20 years in prison, and misdemeanor battery. It's completely egregious. It's a tough story. It's a tough story if you read anything about it with Marcell Ozuna. So he has the injury. On top of that, I don't know that we will ever see him play baseball again. And
I would definitely say we don't see him play baseball again this year. I dropped him in all the leagues where I had him. So I would advise everyone else to do the same.
Yep. Go ahead and drop Marcell Ozuna. Trevor Story went to the IL with right elbow inflammation as a precautionary measure. And it looks like Dan Schneier, who copy and paste the rundown, just deleted my rundown for a second. Freaking out. I was like, where did everything just go? But it's back. So thanks, Dan. Trevor Story went to the IL. Oh my God, I almost had a panic attack. With right elbow inflammation, he will undergo more testing on Monday or Tuesday. Kevin Gausman was removed from Sunday start.
The downside of Google Sheets here, I think we just discovered it.
Yeah, this isn't the best idea. I think I'm gonna have to make some Microsoft Word documents moving forward. But Kevin Gausman was removed from Sunday start due to left hip tightness as a precaution. He's slated to undergo an MRI as well. Michael Brantley went to the IL with right hamstring tightness, and Max Kepler also went to the IL with a left hamstring strain. And Scott, Trevor Larnick, it looks like he's going to be sticking around a little bit longer. And now that we don't really have as many concerns about playing time, at least for the short-term future, I think he needs to be rostered in more than 17% of leagues. He hit another long home run this weekend, and through 20 games, Trevor Larnick is batting .228, which is not great, admittedly, but that comes with a 16% walk rate, 26% strikeout rate. His X-Slug is 547, and his max exit velocity is in the 98th percentile. This is Trevor Larnick we're talking about from the Minnesota Twins. He plays 7 games this week. I'll throw a few names your way, Scott. You let me know if you would drop any of these for Larnick. Andrew Vaughn.
I don't think any of the names you list here. Just spoiler alert, I don't think I'm going to say drop any of them for Larnick.
That would include Jorge Soler and Dominic Smith.
Yeah. Though, I mean, I like, I think I said last week on one of the shows that 17, I'm surprised Larnick is down at 17% and not, closer to like 50%, given the caliber of prospect he is and that he hasn't looked overmatched. I mean, the plate discipline's been great. He had that 461-foot home run to center field last week where, you watch the highlight of it and you're like, they have that batter's eye that's basically like a bunch of shrubs in center field. And you're like, okay, how far up there is it going to land? And then it lands above them. And like this, I don't know, these luxury boxes or something out there.
real easy power. That's what I'm noticing right now with Trevor Larnick. So if you do need power in a 5 outfielder league, those are typically category leagues. Larnick is someone that you could look at. Kenta Maeda is past his groin issue, but is managing a sore right arm, which doesn't sound great and maybe contributed to some of his struggles. Somebody recently requested, Scott, that we take a look at players who are banged up and decide whether or not to leave them in our weekly lineups. So I don't have a name for this segment, but it's debuting right now. Ramon,
it's always hard to give a firm yes or no to any of these, but that's
because it depends, obviously, like who you have on your team. But
right.
Ramon Loriano missed this weekend series with groin tightness. How are you feeling about Ramon Loriano?
I think in 5 outfielder leagues, probably stick with him, but otherwise not.
Yordan Alvarez has missed 4 straight with right wrist soreness and is unlikely to play on Monday. This one sounds a little bit more grim, Scott.
Yeah, I would lean against it.
His teammate Yuli Gurriel was out of the lineup for a second straight day on Sunday with inflammation in his left middle finger. Anything on Yuli Gurriel?
No, yeah, I mean, this doesn't sound like a big deal. I added, in a league where you have to make moves overnight, I made one for an alternate first baseman in the league where I have Gurriel. So I'm just waiting till the last minute, but I guess if you don't have that luxury, I would lean towards starting him. Obviously, if you have a great alternative at first base, you can play it safe, but if you don't, I'd lean towards starting Gurriel.
Jazz Chisholm has missed 4 straight with a mild right ankle sprain, and I think in any category league, Scott, where you have a middle infielder, it's probably going to be hard to get Chisholm out of your lineup. But I think in anything shallower where you don't have a middle infielder, if you play in a points league, you probably could find someone who'll play it safe and keep Chisholm on your bench.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that mostly. I know I have him in a categories league, though, where I think I could move Brandon Lau to second base and put another outfielder in. And my plan is to do that unless I hear something optimistic. So, maybe I'm a little more cautious than the average person, but that's what I'm leaning toward with Chisholm.
Anthony Rizzo has now sat out 5 straight games with back tightness. This is another one where I don't feel great about it. And I should have mentioned earlier that there's a ton of early games on Monday. So, probably going to have to make these lineup decisions earlier in the morning and with all these early games on Memorial Day. So Anthony Rizzo, I think it's kind of similar to Jazz Chisholm, where if you play in a league where you have a corner infielder, it's probably going to be tough to get him out of your lineup. But anything shallower, if I play in a points league, the podcast points league that I share with Adam, he's currently on my bench because I don't know when Anthony Rizzo is going to play again. So, and obviously backs can flare up and they can be annoying. The last one is JD Martinez. He missed Sunday after fouling a ball off of his left foot on Saturday.
I'd lean yes on that.
Alrighty. Kyle Gibson is likely to be activated this weekend. Jose Urena went to the IL with a right forearm strain. Jorge Soler left Saturday's game with right groin discomfort. The Royals promoted Edward Olivares on Sunday. He went 2 for 4 and is only 3% rostered. Olivares was batting .395 with 5 home runs and 7 steals in 20 games at AAA. Scott, any interest in Edward Olivares of the Royals?
Not rushing out and picking him up, maybe, other than like an AL only league. He was interesting last year, though, and as we've discussed before, I was a year early on a lot of players, so but keep an eye on him.
Miles Michaelis received a stem cell injection in his right flexor tendon and will be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. Wade Miley is set to return on Monday and will be a 2-start pitcher, I believe. Tony Gonsolin could return after one more rehab start with the Dodgers. Pete Alonso is expected to be activated on Monday for the Mets. Davey Garcia was not here for long. He was demoted after Saturday's start, where he allowed 5 runs over 4 1/3. So continues his struggles.
Yeah.
He was not good in AAA. Davey Garcia just looks lost right now. So I think he's got to work on some things in the minors. Luke Voigt is expected to miss at least a few weeks with that grade 2 oblique strain, so will not be back after the minimum time. Jose Urquidy is rejoining the Astros rotation on Monday. Brian Hayes, good news, man. Finally expected back on Thursday for the Pirates. Victor Robles began a rehab assignment on Sunday, and we had a bunch of people return this weekend. Framber Valdez went up against the Padres. He allowed 1 run over 4 innings with 4 strikeouts. Cody Bellinger returned. JT Realmuto, Giancarlo Stanton, Starling Marte, Tim Anderson had 4 hits with 2 steals in 2 games this weekend. Finally returned. I think he was dealing with, it was either an ankle or a hamstring. Jake Odorizzi returned on Saturday against the Padres. 5 1/3, 1 earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Christian Walker is back for the D-backs. Trey Mancini returned, and Jesus Luzardo returned and will be used exclusively as a reliever for now with the Oakland A's. He missed nearly a month with a broken finger. Should we continue to hold on to Jesus Luzardo, Scott?
Yeah, I think you should. And, I suspect he'll be back in the rotation at some point. They don't really have anyone obvious to remove right now. That'll change. And, gets a chance to build up in the meantime. I kind of hope he sticks. I guess it's a long time, but I kind of hope he sticks in the bullpen to get the 10 appearances so that he can be RP eligible, but that might take a while. So maybe I shouldn't hope for that.
We do have one prospect update from the weekend. Mackenzie Gore, the Padres' top pitching prospect, is dealing with a blister issue at AAA, and he has been dealing with a bunch of performance issues as well. He has trouble repeating his delivery. He's walking a lot of batters so far. So that's why we've seen names like Logan Gilbert and Alek Manoah potentially surpass Mackenzie Gore as the top pitching prospects in baseball, because he's struggled big time. Let's take a look at some players who you might want to drop. Scott will fire up the dropometer. These are actually all starting pitchers, I just realized. So let's do it. 0, not dropping this player at all. 10, get rid of him. Don't need him on your fantasy team. Blake Snell, what's happening, man? We talk about Blake Snell every week. Same thing with Luis Castillo. We'll get to him as well. But Blake Snell at the Astros this weekend, he allowed 7 runs with 3 walks over just 3 innings pitched. The ERA now stands at 5.55. The walks per 9, 5.94. Blake Snell has really gone down this Robbie Ray rabbit hole from like a couple of years ago. Yeah. It's something you really don't want to do. So, Scott, where are we on Blake Snell, the drop-o-meter? Can you drop him anywhere?
Maybe like a 3. I've been losing faith in him really for years. I've been losing faith in him, but especially this year. And remember, it was just 2 outings ago that he had the 6 innings for the first time since 2019 and 11 strikeouts, and it was his best start in a long time. But then the 2 starts since then have been really bad. You know, before that 6 inning start, it's not like he was terrible. It's just he was inefficient and not giving you what you thought you were getting. But these last 2 starts, it's been bad. Now, Jace Tinkler, his manager, pointed out this start on Sunday. He was facing the Astros, and he's like, the Astros don't chase anything. Like, you can't get the Astros to chase stuff. So I think he was pointing out that Snell was not being aggressive enough in the strike zone. And, you know, just looking at the numbers as a general rule, that's probably true. But the matchup didn't help him this time. You know, definitely a sit for now, but we know what the upside is, and the whiff rate is still great. Even in the first of these 2 starts, I think he had like 16 whiffs in less than 4 innings. So, you know the stuff is good. The stuff hasn't been compromised here. So I'd hold on to Snell for now.
And if you are a believer in the underlying numbers, xFIP is something that we call out quite a bit here on this podcast. He has a 5.55 ERA, but that is with a 3.57 xFIP. So it says that Blake Snell is deserving of better numbers so far this season. Luis Castillo, not so much. At the Cubs this weekend, he allowed 4 runs. Only 2 of those were earned, but 4 more walks. He only goes 5 innings, only gets 3 strikeouts. And I saw you point out, Scott, this is ridiculous. Luis Castillo has 13 fantasy points on the season. That is so bad.
Yeah, to put that in perspective, if he was averaging 13 points per start, standard CBS scoring, if he was averaging 13 points a start, that would be disappointing. That would be less than you hoped for from Luis Castillo. So to have 13 points total, how many starts in? 9? 10?
11 starts.
11?
He's averaging under 1.5 fantasy points per start, which is just utterly ridiculous. So where are we? Are we closer to dropping him? Where are we on the drop-o-meter with Castillo?
We're closer. I think if I went 3 on Snell, I got to go 4 on Castillo. I'd still look for a way not to drop him. I actually have him in one of my shallowest leagues, a 12-team points league where only 252 healthy players are rostered, and I've managed to hold on to him, but it's been hard. It's been obviously, you know, it's easy. Hey, he scored 13 points all year. Why not give up on him? But of course, all that matters from the day you're making the decision is what happens here forward. And as we've been saying for Castillo, it could just turn on one day, like flipping a switch, you know. And yeah, you'll feel really bad that you dropped him if that were to happen.
Mm-hmm. How about Madison Bumgarner, Scott, who the velocity remains up, and he went up against the Cardinals this week, and he allowed 7 runs. 6 of those were earned, and now this is a few clunkers in a row. I know that he left recently with an injury in one of those starts, but he hasn't been as good as we saw earlier. So he's 84% rostered. Where's Madison Bumgarner on the drop-o-meter?
Probably like a 6. I'm not ready to abandon all hope here, but I realize roster space is limited, and you know, you're kind of relying on what his season-long numbers look like, what the perception was on him coming into the season. It wasn't just like a start or 2 where he looked transformed, you know. It was 5 starts.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers were amazing. And even in the rough starts since then, he's still averaged more than 91 or right around 91 on his fastball. It was still, you know, returning to his former velocity. So I don't really know what's gone wrong for him, but it was a 5-start stretch where he was like giving up no hits. Oh, it was. Okay, so yeah. So in those 5 starts, he had a 0.9 ERA. And yeah, the hit rate was really low. So yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to just give up on Bumgarner, but I do think he's semi-droppable.
Mm-hmm. How about Anthony DeSclafani, Scott, who at the Dodgers this weekend, he wasn't terrible or anything. 4 2/3, 2 earned, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. He's just kind of meh. His last time out before this, I think it was his last time out, he got destroyed. He allowed something like 10 or 11 earned runs. He is still 84% rostered. The overall numbers this year are still very good for Anthony DeSclafani. So where are you at on him on the Dropometer?
I'm actually higher on dropping him. I'd put him at 7. Say the overall numbers are still really good. That's what you're telling me. I mean, 8K per 9. The XFIP is 411. The ERA is 356. Okay. But no, I was never totally on board with them anyway. I was keeping an open mind because it's the Giants and they've done some interesting things with pitchers over the past couple years. But I don't think DeSclafani deserves your undying loyalty.
How about Patrick Corbin, Scott, up against the Brewers this weekend? 4 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 5 innings pitched. He's still 87% rostered. Patrick Corbin is. The ERA stands at 6.23 with a 1.52 whip. Dropometer, Patrick Corbin.
I'll put him with Bumgarner at a 6. Some interesting things going on with him, and velocity, like with Bumgarner, isn't the concern anymore. He did kind of cut back on the sliders in this most recent start. One of the encouraging signs was that he was going back to emphasizing the slider like during his best years, and it was getting some whiffs. But that's just one start where he kind of changed that approach. I still think there's a chance he turns out pretty good this year, but yeah, I'll go 6 on the Dropometer.
Dallas Kykel has basically turned back into the Dallas Kykel of old, where he's really not getting any strikeouts at all. And I'm not going to say that 2020 was a complete fluke because he was great, but that is not the Dallas Kykel that we've seen so far this year. No. He has a 4.53 ERA and a 1.32 whip. What's the Dropometer on him, Scott?
8. I just think he's fringy. I just think there are too many strikeouts out there and he's not giving you any. So you're really depending on him winning, which, the White Sox help with that, but he hasn't even been pitching deep into games consistently like he has in years past.
Mm-hmm. Frankie Montas was up against the Angels this weekend. He did allow 4 runs over 5 2/3, though they were not earned. 0 earned runs in this start. He is at a 4.45 ERA, however, with a 1.41 whip, the Dropometer on Frankie Montas.
5. I'll say 5. Let me see. What did I have? I had Bumgarner as 6. Do I have a 4 yet? I guess Castillo was a 4. Yeah. So yeah, keeping things calibrated here. We're a 5 for Frankie Montas. That splitter is just started getting a ton of whiffs again. Kind of reminds me of 2 years ago. And so I'm reluctant to move on from him, even though the ERA is bad. I think there are some positive signs that the ground ball rate is still really low, which is not what he was doing 2 years ago. But I think he's moving the right direction, and he gives you volume. So 5 for Frankie Montas.
Last name here, Scott, is Cole Irvin up against the Angels this weekend. He allowed 4 earned runs over 6 innings pitched. And kind of like DeSclafani, the surface numbers are okay, 3.92 ERA, but the underlying numbers are pretty bad. Yeah. So
I was never buying into Irvin. I wrote him as I wrote him just because he was a hot hand play in leagues where I could take advantage of his relief pitcher eligibility. But in the long run, that came back to bite me because now there's 3 starts in a row with 4 earned runs or more. He might eventually be the opening created for Jesus Luzardo. So I go 10 Irvin on Irvin. I don't think, maybe in just such a deep league where there's no interesting pitchers available, there's no reason to drop him. But if there's anybody else you want more, Irvin you can move on.
All right. So some players you can drop. Cole Irvin at the top of that list. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, you're dropping people. Who are you adding? We'll talk about it next. Fantasy Baseball Today. The top waiver wire starting pitchers from the weekend. Obviously, Tarek Skubal was one of them, and we spoke about him at the top. But how about his teammates, of course, Casey Mize and Turnbull, and then a few others from this weekend, Scott. Adbert Alzolay, 5 2/3 shutout against the Reds. It's surprising to me that he's still only 64% rostered. He's been really good. John Gray was not good at the Pirates this weekend, but he faces the Rangers at home. And for some reason, John Gray is really good at home this year. He's got a 2.36 ERA in 7 home starts. And the other name is JT Brubacher, who tossed 6 shutout against the Rockies. He's 54% rostered. He was placed on the bereavement list on Sunday, but his next start is still lined up for Friday against the Marlins, obviously, if he comes off the bereavement list. So between Mize, Alzolay, Gray, Brubacher, Turnbull, Scott, who are your 1 or 2 favorites from that group?
Oh, it's easily Alzolay and Mize. Easily. I like the Z's. Anyone with a Z in his name. All about that. No, Alzolay, yeah, I agree with you. 64% rostered. It hasn't been moving up for some reason, but he's been pretty impressive. Now, I have noticed the whiffs are down in May, even though he's still featuring that slider like his primary pitch, basically. So that kind of has me scratching my head. But the results have been good, and I think it's very, very likely the whiffs come back. So Alzolay would be my top choice. Mize, Mize actually, this last start, the whiffs were actually pretty good. But he's thriving on weak contact anyway, and obviously has a great pedigree. So it wasn't this last start the whiffs were good, but they've been better in May overall. Mm-hmm. Still not great, but giving you innings. We're worried about how much longer he'll be giving you innings, but he's giving them to you for now and just being good enough that I think he's, not must roster, but I think he's a decent player to roster.
And would you put Skubal ahead of both of those names you mentioned, Scott?
I think so. Alzolay and Skubal are probably pretty close for me, but I'd have Skubal ahead of Mize, like I said earlier in the show.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone's in shallower leagues, Yusei Kikuchi, 75% rostered, so might be out there in some 10-team leagues, but he's been pretty good recently. Up against the Rangers on Sunday, 6 2/3, 3 hits, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, 16 swinging strikes on 104 pitches. So seems like Kikuchi is hitting his stride right now. And
so his last 6 starts for Kikuchi, 2.77 ERA, 0.85 WHIP.
That's awesome.
9.5 K per 9 and a 15.8% swinging strike rate, which would be, like a top 5 in baseball swinging strike rate. 96.3 is what he averaged in his fastball in this most recent start. He's hit 98. That's it seems like Kikuchi just keeps getting better.
Mm-hmm. And you would put him ahead of Skubal and Alzolay?
Yes, I would.
Me too. So let's do it. Get Yusei Kikuchi on your fantasy teams. That number should be closer to 100% rostered. Some deeper starting pitcher ads, part 1, because there was a lot this weekend. Martin Perez was up against the Marlins, 5 innings, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts. Chris Bubich was at the Twins, 6 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. Logan Webb returned, and he went up against the Dodgers, 5 innings, 2 runs with 7 strikeouts. Alex Cobb at the Oakland A's, 7 shutout with 8 strikeouts. Where'd that come from? And then Justin Dunn up against the Rangers, 5 2/3, 1 run, 8 strikeouts with 16 swinging strikes. So, Scott, between Martin Perez, Bubich, Logan Webb, Alex Cobb, Justin Dunn, who's your favorite from that group?
I'm not wild about any of them. I haven't put in a bid for any of them in any league I'm in. If I have to pick a favorite, it's probably Bubich, because I think his changeup might be the best pitch that any of these pitchers have. I mean, Alex Cobb's splitter, but he throws it so much. And Bubich has a great ground ball rate this year, which is also something I appreciate. So Bubich would be my number 1 choice.
All right. Some deeper SP ads, part 2. And if you didn't like that list, Scott, I mean, we're going pretty deep here. Yeah. But Mitch Keller tossed 5 shutout against the Rockies. He basically alternates terrible starts with decent starts. So if you follow that trend, he might get blown up his next start. But he is going up against the Marlins this week, so that's what stood out to me. 13% rostered is Mitch Keller. Mike Fultonevich, smoke and mirrors. I don't know how he continues to do it, but 7 innings, 2 runs, only 2 strikeouts. Ross Stripling, this is now 2 appearances in a row where he's looked pretty good. 5 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. Matt Peacock, don't really know much about the fellow, but 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He plays for the Diamondbacks, if you didn't know. He went up against the Cardinals this weekend.
Brad Peacock, I'll tell you that much.
And Vladimir Gutierrez for the Reds. He was called up on Friday. He pitched against the Cubs. 5 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts, Scott. Of course, deeper leagues, but if you had to choose one between Mitch Keller, Mike Fultonevich, Ross Stripling, Matt Peacock, and Vladimir Gutierrez,
I think you could take a flyer on Stripling, just given his history. At this time last year, we were all pretty excited about him. If only he had a spot in the Dodgers rotation, So, yeah, Stripling would be the guy. I'm not saying in standard mixed leagues you need to make a move for him yet, but
yeah,
I got to pick someone because that's the exercise.
That is the exercise indeed. Let's talk about some hitters. And Ty France, since returning from the IL, he has 9 hits in 7 games. He's 60% roster, and he plays 7 games this week. If you remember, in 23 games before he got hurt, he was batting .325, 3 homers, 8 doubles, 9% walk rate, 23% strikeout rate. Scott, I kind of feel like people are forgetting how good he was, and I think his roster rate should be higher than 60%. This is Ty France.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that is not obvious just from looking at his numbers and from the experience of rostering him was he got hit by a pitch in the forearm. Basically, the injury he went on the IL for, but after getting hit, he played, like 3 weeks. So his numbers collapsed. Yeah, I had a good feeling after a period of rest to let that injury heal, he'd come back. He's been such a consistent 300 hitter in every context. And now he's, 3 for 10 since coming back? Exactly 300? 3 for 9? Like 3 for 9 or 3 for 10. Yeah, I think Ty France is going to be worth a second look. If not already, then soon.
Would you rather have him or Nick Madrigal, who has multiple hits in 4 of his last 6 games? He's now batting .300. He's 71% rostered. So you might have to make a decision on those two in shallower leagues if you need a second baseman.
Yeah, I think France clearly has the more upside. If Madrigal was going to be a big base stealer, that might be different, but 1 steal so far. So Madrigal is looking a lot like what we thought David Fletcher would be, and maybe what David Fletcher will still be eventually. But, lack of strikeouts being his main strength, that there's some interest there in points leagues maybe, but overall I'm not that interested in Madrigal. It's
pretty weird that the White Sox won't let Madrigal run. I don't know if it's just something to do with him or what the reason is, but he's in the 81st percentile in sprint speed according to StatCast, and they're letting Tim Anderson run. I guess they're not really letting anyone else run, but yeah, I think he's capable of it. They're not letting Nick Madrigal run for whatever reason. Mike Zanino over the weekend, he continues to crush it on, I believe it was Sunday. He went 2 for 4 with his 12th home run, and he is up there in terms of barrel rate this year. He's actually number 1. I think I said Tyler O'Neill was number 1 earlier. That is false. It's actually Mike Zanino. I think I mixed those 2 stats up. But Mike Zanino, number 1 in barrel rate among all hitters, not just catchers. And he's doing that with a 37% strikeout rate. So, Scott, he is 53% rostered. Do you need to get Zanino in 1-catcher leagues?
I don't have a lot of trust in Zanino, but there aren't 12 catchers that I have a lot of trust in. So if you're at the back end of that group in terms of filling your catcher spot, I think you just work with him until he runs out of steam, till maybe that barrel rate normalizes. Yeah, I have him in 1 league where I've been doing that, and so far, so good.
Would you drop any of Gary Sanchez, Mitch Garver, or James McCann for Mike Cenino in a 1-catcher league?
Not Garver. Look at Garver's May stats. They're really good. He seems to be gaining steam. The other 2, look, rest of season, I think McCann and even Sanchez, I'd bet on them being better from today forward. But if it's a one catcher league, I swapping him out for the hot hand, I don't think is wrong necessarily.
Yeah. It's weird because it's coming at a time where Sanchez actually has looked a little bit better recently. 5 hits over his last 3 games.
Yeah, has his playing time gone up? Is he kind of back in the predominant catcher role for the Yankees?
I know that he was playing more because of all their injuries, so they were just playing him at DH, and they were having Kyle Higashioka catch. But it looks like Sanchez has played. He's only sat 1 time since May 23rd. Is what it looks like. Well, there was a doubleheader on the 27th, but
yeah, he's playing more.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I still think it's pretty interchangeable.
Yeah. You could probably just ride the hot hand, like you said. Last name I wanted to bring up here, Scott. Brad Miller. He went 2 for 4 with an RBI on Sunday. He is now batting .304 with 5 home runs and 3 steals. He's 22% rostered and figures to play pretty consistently as long as Bryce Harper is out. He has first, second, third, and outfield eligibility on CBS, and he plays 6 games this week. So where, if anywhere, do you think Brad Miller needs to be rostered?
Anywhere you need a fill-in bat at one of those positions. I'd be fine picking him up in any format. I don't think there's longevity here, really. People who played last year might remember. I think, was he with the Cardinals at the time? But he had a really productive stretch last year where he did a lot of damage in a short period of time for fantasy teams, and I think he's capable of doing that again while he is getting the playing time. And I like his matchups this week, so yeah, I'd be fine with Miller as a fill-in.
Alrighty. Some deeper waiver wire hitters, Scott, that let me know if you have any interest. Again, these are deep names. Josh Reddick went 3 for 5 on Sunday. He's betting .324. He's now with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he's been playing pretty consistently. He's 2% rostered. They have 7 games this week. Edmundo Sosa, who is playing shortstop for the Cardinals. He's filling in for Paul DeJong. He's batting .309. He has 2 steals. He's 7% rostered. And Freddie Galvis, he has 3 home runs over his last 4 games, and he's now up to 9 home runs. Freddie Galvis, every single year. Nobody wants to roster him. He's boring, but just like kind of produces like a middle infielder in a deeper league. So it's not exciting, but Reddick, Sosa, Galvis, anything here?
I think of the leagues where they're worth rostering, it'll be pretty obvious. Like in a 15-team league where I just lost Nico Horner as my shortstop after already losing Corey Seager as my shortstop. Edmundo Sosa was the best shortstop to pick up, and there really was no other choice. So, he did have interesting numbers in the minors 2 years ago. But that was obviously with the juice ball and the PCL. He had 17 home runs in 453 games. So I don't know. It's not, I don't think you're missing anything if you pass him over. And I'd rather have had Freddie Galvis if that was an option.
Mm-hmm. Let's hit the calls of the pen a little bit earlier, get you some bullpen updates from the weekend. And for the Cardinals, Daniel Ponce de Leon picked up 2 saves on Thursday and Friday, and it just kind of caught my eye. So I wanted to let everyone know that Alex Reyes was unavailable for that for, I believe it was Friday, and the Thursday one went into extra innings where Alex Reyes actually had already pitched. So Reyes also picked up his 15th save over the weekend. I don't think there's anything to see there, but maybe Ponce de Leon is the next man up behind Alex Reyes. So for the Giants this weekend, Jake McGee was used in the 8th inning on Friday. Tyler Rogers allowed 3 runs and took the blown save, but wound up with the win. And then on Sunday, Jake McGee was used in the 9th inning, and he allowed a home run to Albert Pujols, but did lock up the 12th save. You
had your chance. You had your chance, McGee. You could have gotten it back. That's what I think. That's what I think of this situation. I think they'll go back to Rogers next time.
Yeah, I think so too. For the Mariners, oh my, always fun times here. Keenan Middleton was using the 8th inning on Friday. Eric Swanson recorded 4 outs. He picked up his first save. Rafael Montero was unavailable. He had pitched 3 of 4 days entering Friday. And then Rafael Montero allowed a run, but picked up his 7th save on Saturday. And Keenan Middleton got his 4th save on Sunday. So 3 saves this weekend for the Mariners. 3 different Mariners relievers picked them up. It's a mess.
You know, remember the shruggy shoulder emoji that was just made with like a bunch of text, you know, that one, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I actually do. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's
what's going on. Just wait for Graveman to get back.
Yeah. And Graveman, I saw that he is still quarantining in San Diego, which is they had one of their previous series there, but he either tested positive or he was a close contact for COVID. So that's why he's currently on the IL. I did pick up Keenan Middleton in a few very deep league, 15-team roto leagues, but yeah, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Of those
I have yet to drop Montero in the 15-team roto league where I have him, though I did drop him in my 24-team dynasty league, apparently prematurely. I don't know.
I don't think so, Scott. I don't think it's premature. I think it's perfectly fine. For the Tampa Bay Rays on Saturday, Diego Castillo was used in the 8th inning. JP Fireisen got his second save. He's 11% rostered. Scott, are you a little bit more interested in Fireisen? He now has
Fireisen, a song of Fireisen.
Yes, back-to-back saves for the Rays.
Yeah. I'm interested. I mean, who knows what the Rays are doing ever, right? But it seems like he's at least on equal terms with Castillo, and the numbers are good this year for JP Fireisen, who, I mean, that's a nice name. I like the name.
It's a pretty cool name.
Yeah. Put out the fire. He's got ice running through his veins. Like, you could just do so much with that. And
send in some Team Name Tuesdays. We'll hook it up.
No, I mean, look, I'm not blowing the budget for him in those 15-team roto leagues we play in, where obviously anybody who shows signs of getting saves gets scooped up. I was prioritizing Fireisen over Lucas Sims, who TJ Anton came back in and got a 4-out save on Sunday with Sims working earlier in the game. But Sims got the previous 2 saves, and I don't think Anton's ever going to become just a true closer because he's too versatile. So I think Sims is I think among the true relievers, Sims has emerged as the front runner in Cincinnati, but obviously it's not going to be 100% situation, at least not yet. So I went Fireisen over him, and I went both over somebody like Keenan Middleton.
Mm-hmm. Amir Garrett pitched in the 6th inning on Sunday. Lucas Sims was used in the 7th. For the Twins on Saturday, Hansel Robles allowed 2 runs in the 9th. It was actually a home run to Adalberto Mondesi, his first of the year. But Taylor Rogers did get his 4th save of the season. For the Blue Jays on Sunday, it sure looks like Jordan Romano is back, baby, as the closer. He picked up his 3rd save. He's 55% rostered. I think that number needs to be higher. Rafael Dolis was used the inning before. Romano now has Tyler
Chatwood did get a chance for a save Sunday, but he walked 5, and it was bad. I assumed Romano just needed a day off.
Yeah. For the Royals on Sunday, always great times with the Royals as well. Kyle Zimmer used in the 6th and the 7th. He recorded 4 outs. Scott Barlow was using the 7th and the 8th. And who gets the save? He's back from the dead, baby. Greg Holland, his first save since April 18th. And I should have saw this coming, Scott, because I actually dropped Greg Holland in a 15-team league last Thursday for Kyle Zimmer.
Yeah.
What a
serves you right.
I
was prioritizing Holland after Fireisen and Sims both, because I don't think it'll be a long. First of all, I'm not confident he'll be getting all the save chances for the Royals while Stallmont is out. And it doesn't sound like Stallmont's absence is going to be a lengthy one.
Yeah. For the White Sox on Saturday, Liam Hendricks, he picked up saves in both games of the doubleheader. He also picked up one on Sunday, so now he has 13 saves total. Ryan Presley allowed a 3-run home run to Fernando Tatis on Saturday. That was his first blown save of the season. Raisel Iglesias picked up his 9th save. Craig Kimbrell got his 12th, and Lou Trevino got his 7th on Friday. We'll quickly wrap up with some leftovers from the weekend, some starting pitcher studs being studs. Lucas Giolito up against the Orioles. Sure looks like he's just back, and he's great. 7 innings, 1 run, 3 walks, 12 strikeouts for Giolito. Freddie Peralta at the Nationals this weekend. 7 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. Like to see some length there from Peralta, so that's nice. Brandon Woodruff at the Nationals as well. 7 shutout with 10 strikeouts. And Max Scherzer up against the Brewers on the other side of that game. 6 innings, 2 runs, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts, 18 swinging strikes on 89 pitches. Scott, anything you would like to add on Giolito, Peralta, Woodruff, Scherzer?
Well, I'm still a little hesitant to say Woodruff is now the best pitcher in the world, but in 8 of 11 starts this year, he's allowed 3 hits or fewer. And one of the 3 where he didn't allow 3 hits or fewer, he allowed 4 hits.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. Some things to pay attention to for starting pitchers that just stood out to me a little bit. Hyunjin Ryu at Cleveland on Friday. He allowed 2 runs over 5 innings with 6 strikeouts, but he averaged 86.5 miles per hour on his fastball. Not that, Ryu is blowing the ball past anybody, but he averages 89 on the fastball on the season. Apparently it was really cold in Cleveland on Friday night, so I'm sure that affected it. I actually read that that's exactly what he said. But still, for it to be down 2.5 miles per hour, just pay attention there. Shohei Ohtani, speaking of fastball velocity, was back. The velocity was back a little bit. He averaged 94 miles per hour in his most recent start. That was closer to the 95 he's averaged on the season. If you remember, it was now the start before this one. He averaged like 91 and 91.5 miles per hour on his fastball. So nice to see Ohtani's velocity bounce back.
Have you noticed how with Ohtani lately, it seems like they just decide the day before that he's starting? There's no, it's not like he starts every 6th day. So he seems pretty unusable as a starter as long as they're going to do that. Just surprise, Ohtani's starting today.
Yeah. Just keep him in your lineup as a hitter from a fantasy perspective. It's fun to watch him pitch. There's no doubt about it. He's talented, but still much more viable for fantasy as a hitter. Yu Darvish up against the Astros this weekend, 5 innings, 5 runs, 4 of those were earned. But I did notice after the start, his swinging strike rate is down to 12% this year. Last year, that was 14.3%. And he also has a career high 49% fly ball rate, which is not really like Yu Darvish at all. Last year, that was 31%. So we'll be watching swinging strike rate and fly ball rate for Yu Darvish. And Trevor Rogers, the last one at the Boston Red Sox. He was fine. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. But he has now averaged under 94 miles per hour on his fastball for, I actually think it's 3 straight starts. I think I meant to write 3. So Trevor Rogers, still good. Velocity down a little bit.
Interestingly, what day was that Rogers started?
I believe it was Saturday.
Saturday?
Yes.
Gotta find this. Okay. Yeah, I got it. So he threw 13 sliders. Remember, we were worried he was fading the slider. He threw 13 sliders in this game and got 7 whiffs on 13 sliders. So that was an encouraging sign. Although, there's still a little bit of reason for hand wringing over Trevor Rogers. Just worrying about if he's trending the wrong direction here. The other shoe has yet to drop, and hopefully it never will. But I don't know. I think the jury's still out on Trevor Rogers.
Some hitting leftovers from the weekend. Jared Kelenic is now batting just 123 with a 443 OPS. Scott, should we leave Kelenic in our lineups this upcoming week or wait for him to show some signs of life?
Well, I really liked the Mariners matchups these past weeks, so he did it a home run. Could have been better. I'm not ready to sit him yet.
Eugenio Suarez has now led off the last 5 games that he has started for the Cincinnati Reds. He has 3 home runs during that span, not really doing much else. Adalberto Mondesi is batting .318, 6 games into his season with 1 homer, 1 steal, 1 caught stealing, and in Mondesi fashion, 0 walks to 10 strikeouts. So, Whit Merrifield, this one I found interesting. He's batting just .230 in May. The plate discipline looks fine. He's got a .247 BABIP with a 51% ground ball rate. So normally BABIP is very high for Whit Merrifield and batting average because he hits a lot of line drives. The line drive rate has been down in the month of May. So I think that's why he's struggling right now. And Charlie Blackmon went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and a triple on Sunday. He is now batting .310 in the month of May, and he's up to .250 overall. So some signs of life here for Charlie Blackmon. Scott, we'll wrap up with to stream or not to stream. And we'll start with Monday. Dylan Bundy at the Giants. James Caprillion at the Mariners. Merrill Kelly versus the Mets. Wade Miley versus the Phillies. Mike Minor versus the Pirates. And Johnny Cueto versus the Angels.
I like Caprillion at Seattle. That's the team he just faced, so it'll be interesting the second time, but obviously he could throw a no-hitter because it's Seattle. Minor against Pittsburgh. I think it's pretty good. I don't love any of the others. I guess Bundy at San Francisco, but obviously that's taking a chance.
Merrill Kelly, man, versus the Mets. Although we can't pick on the Mets anymore, man. They're in first place. They're finding ways to win, so good for them. I mean, their line is still not good, in my opinion, but
no, that's a pretty good one. I might prefer that to Bundy.
Mhm.
I don't really like Merrill Kelly, but he's on a nice run, and it's a good matchup.
Well, what did he do to you, Scott? Why don't you like him?
I don't like his numbers.
All right. Let's take a look at some streamers for Tuesday. Garrett Richards at the Houston Astros. Luis Garcia versus the Red Sox. Brady Singer versus the Pirates. David Peterson at the Diamondbacks. Andrew Heaney at the Giants. And, of course, the stud, John Gant at the Dodgers.
Well, hopefully in that big park at San Francisco, we won't see 3 home runs off Andrew Heaney. So I'll go Luis Garcia over him versus Boston. I mean, obviously that's not a good matchup, but Garcia did have his best start against the Dodgers last time out. But then I'll also go Heaney and I'll go Singer against Pittsburgh.
All righty. For Scott, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.